Hi everyone, Hamilton Forrester. Welcome to my podcast. I've got a good friend of mine here with me. He's classed as the car buying guru. His name's Gavin Cameron. And what I'm wanting to do is ask Gavin some questions on this podcast, how he got to the position where he is now. And so welcome to the podcast, Gavin.
Thank you for having me, Hilton. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to actually ask you a few questions about your background and how you got to from where you are to say your label has been the car buying guru. Could you tell the listeners more about yourself?
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Gavin. I grew up in Harrow, just outside of northwest London. Just normal kid growing up in Harrow, really. Went through school, college, and I left Harrow and moved to Derby to study at university for some time. Long story short, I ended up moving to Birmingham once my son was born. And across that period of being in Derby and moving to Birmingham, I started to venture out a lot more in being entrepreneurial. Tried and tested many things with a sales background as well. Did different sales jobs from the age of 17, and then fell into car sales.
Okay.
And being a bit more than just about money, that for me, I learned a lot about car finance in particular. Fell in love with it. Always wanted to run my own business, and lo and behold, we now have the car buying guru after teaming up with my business partner and co-founder.
Awesome. That really is a great journey. But when it comes to, you mentioned on the word there, sales. And, I know in business, how important is that particular thing for you, especially the fact that without sales, you don't have a business. How is that important in your journey, sales?
Sales is something that I didn't even realize how important it was. I kind of fell into it at a young age. I started, Tesco's was my first proper job after obviously a paper round. Then I went and worked in a clothes store next River Island. And then I started working in a jewelry store. And that's when I really had to start learning how to sell. And then after that, I went into selling phones for O2. And that's when I really cut my teeth in selling and found that I was actually really good at it. Used to hit targets, was incentive driven. I'm also very competitive, been competitive from a young age, being a football fan, playing football. Even when I wasn't the best, I always tried to be and compete with the best. So yeah, I think sales has just been a major part of my development, not even just in business and in work, but in life, because you have to communicate with people. And a lot of people think sales is all about the gift of the gab and talking, but I actually learned that the trick with selling is being able to listen. So I really have come in, especially more and more I fall into adulthood, realized how much my sales background benefited with communication, with just being able to listen to people and gather the information needed to get on through a sale, but also through life.
Cool. Awesome. And then just to touch on your background there, you said you grew up in Harrow, and you, I think off before we came onto the podcast, you mentioned about some of the people around you at the time when you was being raised. How much of an influence has that been on your life?
It's from very young. Like I grew up I was born in Chalk Hill.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Chalk Hill Estate. It's sort of been knocked down. And when I was 3, we moved to Harrow. But the reason we moved is because my mum and dad realised that obviously having a little boy growing up on what was at the time one of the most notorious estates in London probably wasn't the best idea, because he's only probably going to lead me down one road, and that would be dead or in jail, to be honest with you. And they moved me to Harrow to a good area to give me a better opportunity, essentially, and bigger house and all the rest of it. It's more comfortable for my siblings. But I found that even in Harrow, the there was a lot of people that I went to school with that weren't as lucky in the sense of having guidance at home for whatever reason it was. My parents are both born and bred in the Caribbean, which was a
Yeah.
bit unique. I'm sort of on the cusp of people that were either first generation of British-born Caribbeans or the second generation of British-born Caribbeans.
Okay.
Majority were grandparents were born in Jamaica, whereas my parents were both born in Jamaica or other islands across the Caribbean in the 80s. So it was it was a bit different, my upbringing, to others. But I think one thing that my parents did drill into me was that basically you don't bring no police to the door. I wasn't even frightened of the police like that. It's more my parents, and I couldn't get arrested because of what my parents would do to me. I used to always joke and say that if I did get arrested, then I'd have to lock me up because of the simple fact that I couldn't go home. The punishment would be worse if I went home. So yeah, a lot of my peers in school, they weren't bad kids. To this day, I don't really see them as bad kids. A lot of my friends ended up in problems. Some end up going to jail for a very long time, and they've come out, and I've spoken to them and I reason with them to this day, and you can tell that they're not bad people. We kind of get this stigma attached to young black boys that get caught up in certain situations that they're bad people, but they're not. For me, they're not always the case. Obviously, some people are. There are some people that deserve everything they get as far as their punishment. But even the good ones, that they have to do their time if they do the crime, as they say. But it's not, they've not done the crime because they're just looking for bad, to be full of badness.
Okay.
Sometimes they're just not guided. They're not shown a different route. I was lucky enough to be shown the possibilities of having your own business, and if you work hard, what you could achieve. And both my parents were very hardworking and also very open with telling me that you shouldn't do certain things and don't get caught up in certain crowds. So I made it out. Not everyone does, but I made it out.
Okay, that's awesome. That's amazing. And I want to take you now into your business a bit more. Your class as a car buying guru, and what would you actually say that when it comes to, you mentioned about targets, when you're actually a car salesman, you are doing a certain amount of hours in the day to get to certain targets. What is the procedure or techniques or certain things what you could share with others who are running a big businesses?
I might disappoint you with my answer. I mean, when I first got into the dealership, there was a guy that worked there. And I've never actually told him this. He's an older guy called Mike. This black guy. I think he had he's got 3 kids, yeah. And I just sat opposite him because he was the guy he was the one that everyone said he earned the most money, he made the most sales. And you could just see that he was relentless with it. And some people will say they break down that they want to get X, they got to hit X per day, or they got to put in X amount of hours. But Mike just worked, and he kept on working, and he would be the last one to leave, and he would constantly have customers coming in, churning him over. And I learned by watching him that his whole thing was he's just going to keep on going, and whatever the number is at the end, he'll get it. And he would get it every month. He just wouldn't stop. He was there for one reason only. Some people went to that place to socialize. Some people went to that place because they got a free car, or because they just needed to have some sort of income. It's better than signing on, I guess. But the thing with car sales is that the basic wage is rubbish. You got to earn every penny pretty much once you get there. So I learned that pretty quickly, like watching someone like him and just being relentless with it and just going as hard as possible and working as hard as possible. And I just emulated the same thing. I would go in on my days off. I would go and stay for like 12 hours when I didn't need to. 8 till 8 would be the normal for me. 6-7 days a week. I realized that everyone in that dealership was my competition, but also every customer that walked in was a prize. And if I could sell a car to them, then I'll sell a car. I feel that you should, in business, have targets and set goals and all the rest of it. But trying to be a bit more, work on faith and know that everything's in God's hands, really. So I just got to put the work in, and the rest is done by a higher power. And if it's going to be, if I'm going to make 100 million before the end of the year, then I'll make 100 million. If I only make £500 before the end of the year, then it's £500. But I've got to put everything I can in to get to whatever is there for me. Because even if I am being given the blessing of success, then I have to work to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that certainly does. That's an awesome answer. I
Yeah.
think also, and based on how I know you, I know you're really into giving back and helping the others in the community by
Mm.
your example, knowing by your example, but your activities. Could you expand on that itself?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that because I feel like I'm only just really getting started with what I want to do, but I'm already trying to do as much as I can for young people as far as like educating them. I get more and more offers to come and speak to young people. Just before we come on, I got an email from a group that I've been working with recently where they're like 17-year-old entrepreneurs. They're trying to set their own businesses up. I think it's amazing because they have this amazing opportunity that I didn't have when I was growing up. Like 20 years ago, if you gave me the internet, I would have been in a whole different position now. And I feel like it's beneficial for me to speak to those people. I see these young guys, and I just see myself. No matter what the creed or color is, I just see myself as far as an ambitious person that wants to try and do things to make a difference.
Yes.
So my way of giving back is just telling them what I think I would need to be heard, what I need to hear now to this day. To be honest, not just when I was younger, but the fact that they can hear it, and they obviously look at what I'm doing and they think it's inspiring,
Yeah.
and that means that they may listen a bit more than their friends or even their family members. And I know what that's like. If you're growing up in a certain household, you don't want to hear what your parents have to say necessarily. But as an outside influence, I think it's important for me to speak to them on a certain level and let them know that it's possible when you can build whatever you want from scratch.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you just got to have certain things about your character and certain work ethic, and you can make it work. So yeah, that's one way I give back. I'm trying to start a charity. I'm in the process of starting a charity for sickle cell, which will be coming this year. It's the plan. It's all dependent on what happens with COVID, but yeah, we're working on that.
Okay.
And there's those sort of things. Any way I can give back. I mean, even with just with the business, I'm trying to employ friends and people around me just to try and give people an opportunity. And it's funny. I seen a friend of mine I've known since college, and we was talking, and she said to me, "Oh, she's still waiting for me to offer her that job that I spoke about all them years ago." And that just, I couldn't even remember the conversation, but you know when you can't deny something because it sounds like you. And I know that I would have said it to her at some point. And this was long before Car Buying Guru existed and everything else.
Yes.
And that's what I was like. I just wanted to be able to put my friends on, so to speak. It's all well and nice being able to have a nice car and a nice house and all the rest of all these things we dream of, but to do it by myself would be boring. I'd prefer to do it with people that I know and love.
Yeah. That's all. That's an awesome answer. And what is would you say is your big driving why?
Oh, it changes. The one that sticks the same is my children.
Okay.
Yeah, they're my biggest why. But then it changes. Like I said, it was solely them for a long while. When I first started in a motor trade, my son was a baby. He's 9 now. So I just wanted him to have the latest trainers. Had to pay his nursery fees. So wanted him to have a certain lifestyle. Make sure his mum was okay. So that just he became the biggest catalyst into the person you're speaking to today. I'd say I always tell him that he sort of changed my life. And now his little sister's about, and a man with his daughter, that you know what that's all about. It's going to be even more reason to go hard. And but then once they're okay, I kind of need more. So I think my other why now is, like I said, to make an impact on the world and trying to help people. Even with the business, we're not like your normal everyday car supplier. We want to educate people. We give sound advice on car finance. I saw too many people make mistakes, and I saw too many people make bad decisions when I was working in dealership to not want to try and help and make a difference in the motor trade. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be innovative. No one was really selling cars the way we sold cars in 2017.
Yeah.
There's very few in our field. So we're trying to change that and came in the game trying to help people make better decisions when buying cars.
Okay.
And that's a major part of why I do what I do with everything. Just trying to make a difference.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. I want to ask you a deeper question, Gavin. You're a black man like me, and
Mhm.
we are in business. I run businesses as well. And there is sometimes mindset or stigma regarding a black business and a white business running and how difficult it is. What would you say in that particular area is your feelings or your example?
Internally, it's conflicted at the moment because I do want to help build a black community and build a black currency. Black economics is important, but at the same time, I've got to win. Like my biggest why, like I said, is my children, and we're only 3% of the population in the country we live in. And unfortunately, the product and service I provide is not an international one where I can supply Africa and I can supply the Caribbean and places like America where, even though it's predominantly white, there's a large popularity of black people. So in the UK, it's a bit of a conflict of which one. How do you be a black owned business without being seen as a black business or a business for black people? So like a lot of Caribbean shops, for instance, anyone can eat rice and peas, but a lot of white people will see rice and peas or the Caribbean shop itself as a black shop. I think more in recent years that people are opening up to the idea of Caribbean food and Jamaican food and all the rest of it. But it's very much seen as a black thing. You go there, that's where the black people go, which limits us. It puts a glass ceiling on us. So internally, I'm feeling like, do I want to step out and be a black business owner, or do I want to be the owner of a black business? And meaning, as a black business owner, it doesn't matter what color or creed my clientele are. But at the same time, they need to feel comfortable. And how do I do that without pandering? Number one, number two, how do I do that without looking like I'm selling out my people, so to speak? And
Okay, thanks for that, Gavin. The next question I want to ask, and this is something which in my business ethics is that you're a black business and you have two candidates, one's a white person and one's a black person. How do you define choosing between each one if you had to choose one?
okay, so the thing with that question is one that I've asked myself before, because we live in how do I put this? As black people, for years we've obviously lived on this thing of racism and prejudice. Um, and these things exist. We're not going to deny it. We're not stupid. But I also look at it like I ask myself that same question. So people will always say to me, they didn't get this because they're black. They didn't get that because they're black. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. But what are we going to do about it? Because we're only ever going to be in a position of we're always going to be on the losing side of that competition. Because for me, to answer your question, if I've got two candidates and one is black and one is white, the likelihood, and I say likelihood because in this day and age it's not a given, but the likelihood is that I will resonate and I will understand and I will be more, I'll build a better rapport with the black candidate, one would assume. The same way that on a white owned business, a white director, a white manager, or a white CEO, whatever, would resonate to a white candidate versus me, one would assume, because their upbringing's the same and all the rest of it. So I would be just as prejudiced as them. And that's how I've looked at certain positions. So even with the dealership I was working in, I didn't ever call it racist, but I knew that I was never going to make it to where I felt I could have made it in that business. The promotion, the level of above of where I was, I would never have got there until I waited till the very end. I would have been the last pick. I'd have been the only option. The same way when I got to the position I was in when I left to get promoted to the business manager is because they had no other choice. Once I got there, I outperformed everybody else in the country in my field, but to get that opportunity, I was the only option. They would try to bring in every other creed and color other than the black way, which is fine. And I don't look at it as a negative. All that does is makes me know that we need to have our own. So we can be in a position that when there is a candidate, there is a black and a white candidate, that maybe I will choose the black guy because I am going to build a rapport with him more than I would the white candidate. The same way that when I went for certain jobs that I knew I was better than the other person at, he probably got it because he was a white boy. And that's just how it is. That's life. That's just how we are. We gravitate to what we're used to, and it's not. I don't like throwing around the word. I was having this conversation on Saturday evening. I don't like throwing around the word racism,
Right.
because even than just certain words being said or not being given a job necessarily, it's deeper than that. The racism is very, very deep, and I feel like there'll be some prejudice when you're going through certain jobs, but racism is institutional. Real racists, they don't go out to football stadiums and shout things and throw things at people. Those people are ignorant. They can't affect my life so much. The real racists that really affect my life are the ones we need to battle against. And the only way of doing that is having our own business and building an economy for ourselves.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for that, Gavin. I want to also ask you this question about, in your journey, what are some of the mistakes you've actually made? I love asking that question.
Oh man, how long we got? I made one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my journey in general, and it's helping me at the moment. That lesson is quitting. That was the biggest mistake. I've quit on so many things that I could have been. Looking back, I should have been successful in. And I think that was part of my journey, and I had to learn that way. I had to learn the importance of perseverance. But one of the biggest lessons I did learn was the lesson of quitting and giving up and not being as stubborn, maybe is the right term. I don't know. But yeah, just giving up too easy on too many occasions. Number one. Number two, the whole thing I said about not really having targets set and not always planning as detailed as I could have.
Yes.
Which is a gift and a curse. Sometimes I feel like when you plan too much, you never actually get anything done, or you hold yourself back from what can naturally occur.
Yes.
But sometimes I've just been a bit too carefree, and I've just gone for Derby Uni. When I first started Derby Uni, I just left. I packed up my stuff one day in the back of my brother's car, and we drove to Derby for the first time ever. I didn't even know how far Derby was from London.
Yeah.
It was like I was an hour into the journey, and I'm thinking, why are we not even there yet? And I was only halfway there. I had no planning. It was just crazy. But again, if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't probably be sat here with you. I would have probably overthought it and not gone there, and I wouldn't be on the path I am now, which I'm more than happy with. So, yeah, I mean, quitting and not planning enough were the things I learned when I was younger. What else? Being careful who you have around you, the company you keep. I've often made mistakes with the people that I've had around me, and maybe the relationships I've not cultivated as well. Trying to use whatever reasons I had, any insecurities maybe for not pursuing certain relationships was an issue.
Yeah.
That I had before, and I feel like it held me back. That's a mistake I made, was not cultivating the right relationships.
The people around you and the relationships. And what do you actually say to the next generation when you actually meet young people and you're doing your giving back? What do you actually expand on with them?
As far as relationships go,
yeah.
I tend to tell them to work with the people around them. Because I mean, for me, I was always like that. I always wanted to be, like I told you, like I had a friend of mine that said I offered her a job years ago because I saw talent in her that could be used in business, like administration and an eye for detail and all the rest of it is a big strength that she has and a weakness that I have. So but people that I was around, that entrepreneurial roots weren't really cool back then. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s,
Yes.
being a business owner wasn't seen as cool. It was, you're crazy. Well, you can't own a business. No one does that. And it's only become cool now with the
Yes.
likes of Instagram and the internet, and it being so easy to start a business and everyone talking about how they own businesses. It's now become cool. But back when I was younger, I would look at the people around me and I'd think, oh, you can do this, you can do that, and you can build a team. Too many people, I feel, look up and want to work with the biggest names and the biggest brands, when really and truly, when I look at these young people, I'm seeing a lot of talent in one room. And if they all come together and they work together, they can probably work together and make something special.
Yes.
That's the advice I'm giving, is just work with your peers, as opposed to trying to get a business set up with someone like me. Work with your peers, work with the people around you, see what you can do for each other.
Yes, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, I think a lot of the times when you're running a business, it's generally the people around you, because you've got you get your stock from somewhere, and then you sell it, and then your connections to all these individuals around you in the business, because I think that's very important. But tell me a bit more about your business itself, and let's expand in that area. And what type of cars do you sell, and what exactly do you actually do there?
The most popular car we sell is a Nissan Qashqai. Believe that. That is what just got delivered to just now.
Wow.
The Nissan Qashqai, yeah. So we sell anything. We'll sell the smallest cars to your family SUVs like a Qashqai, Range Rovers. We'll sell vans. Sold a van last month. Anything, literally anything. It's not really about the vehicle. I always say to people, we can get you anything you want. For us, it's more about making sure you're doing it the right way. So we'd advise you, we do consultation.
Okay.
And we'll look at people. If you've got poor credit, we'll explain to you the downfalls of that. We can offer a service through one of our partners to help you build your credit rating so you can buy a better car from us next time, a better way. We can do pretty much any type of finance package on a new car or a used car.
Yeah.
What else could we do? We just genuinely just have aiming to have all bases covered. So for instance, we're in the development of building an app, which has been delayed, and it's been a bit stressful the last month or two. But the aim of that is to make just car ownership a lot easier, and make the whole process of like having your car serviced and tax reminders, MOT reminders. The amount of people that forget to service and MOT their car is crazy.
Okay.
So we're looking to make that all easier as well, and just bring car ownership and car buying into the new age.
Yeah.
Because we find that the younger people they're wanting to do things differently. They don't necessarily want to go to a dealership and sit down for 3 hours to buy a car. They want to put it on their phone or have someone on the end of the phone that does it all for them and has the car delivered to their house. And that's what we do.
Yeah. So am I right in thinking then you is it new cars or second-hand cars, and then you do service, and is it the entire thing, or is
we do new cars? We do new cars and used cars. Partner with garages. We're partnering with a lot of garages. By the end of this year, we're aiming to have garages up and down the country to get your car serviced, MOT'd, etc. So for the maintenance as well. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, before I ask my last question, where can everyone find you?
Where everyone's at the moment is Instagram. At Car Buying Guru UK is a company one. If you're more than welcome to get in touch with me personally at Mr. Gavin Cameron on Instagram, Car Buying Guru UK on Facebook, and LinkedIn, just Gavin Cameron if you're on my LinkedIn. And the website for the company is carbuyingguru.co.uk.
Okay, awesome. All right, cool. And the last question I'll ask Gavin is what kind of impact do you want to leave on the world?
I just want to be able to make a change and be able to be, I believe there's going to be, for our people in general, for our community, I think the Black community, in the last year or two, there's an increasing number of people becoming aware of our situation. and how we can improve our living situation, just making things better for ourselves as a community. And I want to be one of the people that have an impact on that, whether it be a small pocket of people or known across the nation. I'm not really bothered at the number, but I do just want to be able to say that I had some sort of influence on Black people being able to have their own position and their own economy, like a lot of our peers do.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gavin. I think the thing what I'm getting from everything you give back to the next generation, and that's such an admirable thing by your example and what you're doing in the car buying industry. So thank you for your time today, and yeah, we'll speak another time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.